The most difficult thing is the decision to act. The rest is merely tenacity. The fears are paper tigers. You can do anything you decide to do. You can act to change and control your life. And the procedure, the process, is its own reward.
July 2nd, 1937. Radio crewmen on board the USCG Itasca lose contact with Amelia Earhart.
Day and night messages alternating between hope and disappointment crackle from the South Seas. The search swings around the area from which her last message was received in a desperate effort to solve the mystery of Amelia Earhart's fate.
Atchison is an enchanting and historic town on the bluffs of the Missouri River in the northeast corner of Kansas. More importantly, it is the birthplace of America's most famous aviatrix, or, as she was referred to in her time, the greatest female flyer. Amelia Mary Earhart was born on July 24, 1897, the daughter of Samuel Edwin Stanton Earhart and Amelia Amy Otis Earhart. 2 years later, her sister, Grace, was born. The two sisters would share many childhood adventures. As a child, Amelia was the natural leader. She was forever seeking out adventures for both the girls. Grace would dutifully shadow her. The sisters were to remain extremely close throughout their lives. Always a tomboy, Amelia dressed the part. Bloomers, which the girls' mother had made for them, were the uniform of the day for the girls. These gym-style suits thrilled the sisters. Amelia loved their outfits and the adventures they could perform in them. Amelia was to find out that life was not all running in the fields and playing in rivers. Her father, Edwin, was an alcoholic, and this had a profound effect on Amelia. Because her father was a lawyer for the railroads, Amelia's family was constantly on the move, moving from city to city as his job required. Her father had always encouraged Amelia to be adventurous. While children, the two girls would climb into an old horse-drawn carriage and play a game they called boogie. Their imaginations would take them to faraway places. The game opened the sense of adventure in Amelia. But this sort of daydreaming was not considered ladylike in the 1900s. A woman's place was in the home, caring for the family. The idea of traveling off to foreign lands by ladies was unheard of. Amelia was an exceptional student. Her sixth-grade teacher noted,
"The joy of achievement was uppermost in Amelia's mind. The prizes at school as the plaudits and awards of the world were secondary to her personal satisfaction in a job well done."
In 1907, Edwin's job required his moving to Des Moines, Iowa. The next year, the family joined him, and while in Des Moines, Amelia saw her first plane. Airplanes were in their infancy, and the wood and wire vehicle did not appeal to her at all. By 1913, the family was on the move once again. This time to St. Paul, Minnesota, where Edwin was hired as a freight clerk. A far cry from his once successful days as a claims attorney, it wasn't long till his drinking caused him to lose this position. Amelia's mother decided it was time to protect her family from the hardships of Edwin's unemployment. On the move once again, but without their father, the girls went to Chicago and lived with friends. The Earharts had now separated. Amelia Earhart graduated high school from Hyde Park High School in Chicago in 1916, but she had attended 6 high schools prior to her senior year. During her troubled childhood, Amelia was a serious student as well as a collector. She kept a scrapbook of newspaper clippings of famous women. The scrapbook detailed the achievements of her contemporaries and historical figures. She collected stories about authors, play directors, female explorers, fire lookouts, physicians, psychologists, the only female game warden, a police commissioner, travelers, lecturers, singers, farmers, and eventually a clipping of the U.S. Assistant Attorney General Mabel Walker Willebrandt. Amelia's caption in her high school yearbook read, "The Girl Who Walks Alone." Upon graduation from Hyde Park High School, Amelia entered the all-girls school Ogance in Rideau, Pennsylvania, in the fall of 1916. During Christmas in 1917, Amelia visited her sister in Toronto. This visit would have a profound effect on Amelia's future.
Its objective, to reduce the enemy sector at St. Mihiel, then move north to join other Allied forces in the reduction of the Meuse-Argonne. The American troops gained their objective. They were well supplied, well commanded, and above all, they were fresh and eager.
World War I was in full gear at this time, and Toronto was the base hospital for the wounded soldiers coming back from the Western Front. The sight of amputee soldiers hobbling down Toronto's streets froze in her mind, and the atrocities and horror mankind inflicted on one another changed her life forever. It was here that she became a pacifist, and throughout her life she would lecture about the horrors of war. Contemplating her studies at Ougance, she now believed that she must be of some significance in the world. She wrote her mother.
There, for the first time, I realized what World War meant. Instead of new uniforms and brass bands, I saw the results of 4 years, desperate struggles, men without arms and legs, men who were paralyzed, and men who were blind. I like to stay here and help in the hospital. I can't bear the thought of going back to school and being so useless.
Contemplating becoming a physician, Amelia left Ougance and returned to Toronto. She took a Red Cross first aid class, and as a voluntary aide, she began working at the Spadina Military Hospital. Her attitude and courage to help the amputees and disabled soldiers at Spadina Military Hospital could be summed up by her.
Better do a good deed near home than to go far away to burn incense.
She worked long hours where she met many injured combat pilots and developed a camaraderie with them. While listening to their experiences and adventures in the air, she was fascinated by the tales of the wounded pilots. It was while in Toronto at the end of World War I that she developed an overriding interest in flying. During the air show, pilots would perform their aerial tricks, and on one occasion a pilot dove toward the crowd, sending the wide-eyed masses running before he pulled up, all but Amelia. She would hold her ground unafraid as a pilot pulled out of his dive. She later said about this time in Toronto,
I believe in the winter of 1918, I became interested in airplanes. Though I had seen 1 or 2 at country fairs before, I now saw many of them as officers were being trained. I hung around in my spare time, absorbing all I could. I remember well that when the snow blown back by the propellers stung my face, I felt my first urge to fly.
In 1920, Amelia withdrew from Columbia Medical School and went to Los Angeles, California to be with her parents. While in Los Angeles, her father took her to an air show, and it was there that she decided to fly. At the air show, she convinced her father to ask a pilot to take her up in a plane. He was sure that one ride would be enough to convince her that flying was not for her. The engine roared as the plane left the ground and headed over the Pacific Ocean. Piloted by Frank Hawks, a famous aviator who was to hold many airspeed records, Amelia was thrilled with the excitement of the speed and power of the aircraft. She was hooked. This joy hop, as she referred to later, was what Amelia had been waiting for her whole life. She now knew what she wanted to be. There would be no going back to medical school. Flying lessons were incredibly expensive in 1921. The rate was $1 a minute. Having to pay for lessons herself, she was determined to follow her passion. Amelia took a job with the local telephone company as a stenographer, working during the week and taking flying lessons on the weekends. Although there were few women pilots in 1921, Amelia was sure she wanted a female instructor,